Let's get ready for Monday Mortgage Minute with your hosts, Tom McNamara and Bruce Woodburn.
All right. Happy Monday to you.
It's Monday. It
Super
is
Bowl
Monday.
Monday, my friend. 20% of the workforce doesn't come to work.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of them are going to be not showing up to work because they're disappointed. That was a pretty
That
boring
was
game.
pathetic. And the halftime, I switched over and watched the turning point halftime, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
me too. So you know
yeah.
what was really bad? What made the whole thing worse for me? I don't know who you have, but I have AT&T fiber, and
Okay.
apparently AT&T had a nationwide issue across
Uh,
everywhere, and our service was horrible,
oh,
horrible.
no. Well, I don't think maybe they did it intentionally because the game was so poor.
Could be, could be.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I switched on and off, but I was like, is this game going to get going or what? And I didn't
And
really care. I didn't have a dog in the fight, so I really didn't
nope,
care.
no,
Yeah.
no.
All right.
But
So listen, I want to talk about something that I'm doing tonight. And it was really going to just be a private little class I was doing for one of my clients that I've closed several transactions for, big time into investing in real estate, own several properties, but they want to help their kids understand how to do it. What's the
yeah,
steps to take? So I set up a private class for them at 4:30 this evening at webringyouhome.com. And I want to invite anybody. They're fine if anybody else wants to come. So if you go to webringyouhome.com,
go
oh, that's not the right
go
one.
back,
This
go
is the
back.
right
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Sorry about
yeah.
that.
That's okay. You've
So
got the right one up there.
hey, listen. I don't have a producer doing this for
No,
me.
no,
Okay,
I know.
I'm clicking my own buttons. All right. So, but the fact of the matter is, and you and I have talked about this affordability. It seems to be the big topic. Young people can't get into houses. They can't get into
Mhm.
houses. Too hard for them. And the fact of the matter is that some of that may be true, but others is just propaganda that if you tell them that enough times, they're going to start believing it. And I don't
Mhm.
know about you, but I really struggled. I mean, my first house I bought, I had to get my uncle to help me with a little down payment to get me going. And you know what? It wasn't easy for me then. I don't ever remember it being easy. But
No.
I guess nowadays, if it's not just a lay down for you, it's actually hard.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I mean, my first home was not painful, but I was also in the military at the time and got a VA loan, zero down, and my grandmother actually gave me some closing cost money. So,
Isn't that
I
amazing?
mean, it's yes, it was easier back then, and it is harder today for sure. There's 100% truth in that. However, it's not impossible. You and I get young people in homes all the
All the
time.
time, all the time, all the
Yep.
time. And not all
And
of them are getting gifts from parents. Some of them, the
no,
parents
no.
just like they ain't got it. So, but there are other alternatives. So we're going to talk tonight about, what type of credit do you really need as a first-time
Mhm,
home buyer? How do you establish credit?
mhm.
How much money do I need if I don't get down payment assistance? Can a seller pay some of my closing costs? What are the likelihoods that that's going to happen? Because you and I are dealing with a client right now who happens to be a mature woman, but she's a first time home buyer, right?
Yep, yep.
And she needs closing costs. And she made an offer on the weekend, you were telling me, and the sellers are like, we're not even going to entertain that offer. So let's
Yeah,
talk about why. Okay. Let's talk
sure,
about
sure.
why. Because, first of all, just because that offer isn't entertaining, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And it could even happen on that property. But we have to understand the likelihood. So when a house hits the market, day one, day
Yep.
one, they're getting their feelers on. They're trying to feel, they're going to get the temperature of the room. Who's interested? Did I get anybody showing up? Has anybody made an offer? So when you come in and you're asking for 6% in closing cost on a 300 or $400,000 house, that's a ton of money. It's a
It
ton of money.
is. It is.
And on the first day, it's highly unlikely. Now, they didn't even negotiate with you on that. But
Which
I
is
think
which is a little different than I was expecting. I was truly expecting them to come back and offer something. something even, 1%, $1,000, right? Just to say that they were willing to even discuss it, and they weren't. They were like adamant no. Now, you and
Right.
I both know that's going to change if they don't sell it in the first week or two.
Yeah. And you already determined that that house is probably about 10 grand overpriced anyway.
Maybe even
So
15.
maybe
It
even
needs
15.
some work. It's a cute little house in a great location, but it needs a little work, and it's
Yeah.
only got one bathroom.
And it's got
And
one bathroom, and that is not
one
an easy house to sell.
it's
Right.
yeah, it's amazing. I have a perfect house, a beautiful house in downtown Orlando that has 1.5 bathrooms, and I'm having a hard time selling it.
People don't want one bedroom or one bathroom houses. They
Yep.
and two bedroom, one bath, very difficult to find. So the perfect candidate for that, what might be somebody that's, up there in their age, doesn't want a lot of room, may
Yep.
want one extra bedroom if they have somebody spend the night or use it as an office or, whatever, they're quilting or whatever they do for themselves. I don't know what people do, but they need an extra room, but they only have one bathroom. You got a family, you can't have a house with one bathroom anymore with
No,
a
it's
family of
and
kids.
I grew up, man. I grew up with one bathroom. We had one bathroom. It was, me, my parents, and my sister, and somehow we managed to be clean and, live. But apparently that's
You
impossible now.
well, it's not impossible, but it certainly doesn't meet families' needs.
No,
And
I
we were the
people
same
live
way. I
off
mean,
wall.
I grew up in Domrick, and our first house had one bathroom as well.
Yep.
So, it wasn't easy, but we did make it work. I mean, they weren't big bathrooms there. They had one sink.
No.
It was probably like a pedestal, or it stuck out of the wall with
Yep.
no cabinetry under it. Right?
Nope. Mine was a standard 5x8 bathroom, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
Not a
I grew
lot
up with.
for a whole family. But
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
reality, for young people trying to understand how to navigate that, they cannot be discouraged by that happening.
No, no,
You're going
absolutely
to
not.
have to be
Absolutely not.
flexible. So houses that are just hitting the market are the most challenging to negotiate for anything. Even if you're
Mhm.
putting 20% down and you want to offer the guy 10 grand under ask price, maybe you're 3% under ask price, which is pretty normal, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I think the average house sells for about 97 to 98% of ask, right?
That's about
Somewhere
right.
around
Yeah.
that. So
Mhm.
at the end of the day, they weren't willing to even negotiate. What do you tell a first time home buyer when you're out looking with them about that? How do you walk them through that process?
Well, it all depends on what they do and don't need, right? So if they need something like I've got to get, closing cost credit. Let's just use closing cost credit. If they have to have closing cost credit, we need to find a house that's going to be flexible, right? We can't find the house that just hit the market. It's we could try, but that's not going to be the one you're most likely going to win. You're going to win the house where it's been on the market for a month, 2 months, 3 months, right? The sellers are getting a little bit more, I'll say desperate, flexible, right? Pick a name, but they're willing to negotiate a whole lot more than the guy that just hit the market.
Right.
And what's really nice is I've done this a number of times for first time home buyers or even just credit challenged buyers, where you come in at a house that just dropped in price, and you come back in at their higher price. Hey, you know what?
Right.
I'll give you your full price if you give me back some of it, right?
Yeah.
And so now they're not necessarily lowering their price again. They're just getting what they want today, just a little differently.
That's right. And
So
and buyers need to understand that when your challenge is cash out of pocket, you don't have 20% to put down. You don't need it. So you're putting
mhm,
3.5% down,
mhm.
on a $300,000 house with that 10.5 or something like that. So
Yeah,
you know, if you're like, hey Bruce, I got 12,000 to work with, but my down payment alone is 10.5, and that'll leave me no money in the bank after I close. So we need to get those closing costs paid
mhm.
for that buyer. Well, if the seller is just not willing to work on that, then you got to move on to another property, right? But I
That's
think
right.
educating that client so that they don't become discouraged and they're aware of it going into it, right? It's
Yeah,
all about
and
expectations.
I think the other challenge that I see with especially the young people, right? If you if you're younger and you grew up in a house where, mom and dad did okay, you had a nicer house, maybe a big yard, pool, right? All that kind of stuff. You think that's just how it is, and it's not, go get that starter home, go get that first tier home, right? That's maybe not in the perfect neighborhood. Maybe isn't the perfect layout. Maybe doesn't have the pool, right? Maybe it only has one bathroom. Suck it up, right?
Right.
And
But
because
get into the real estate game.
you're going to get in the real estate game. You can be in that house for 3 to 5 years. You can step up and get into the next one. You can either sell it or do what Bruce teaches, which is a nice leapfrog program, right? Where you keep that
Keep
house
the
and buy
price.
another one, right? And
Yeah,
now,
use it as
now
a
you're
rental.
building wealth and you've got a better home. Um,
Absolutely.
so, that's the challenge. I think there's a lot of psychology behind this. It's not just math. It's when the psychology and the math get married, that's where we
And
come
that's
together, right?
magic at that point when that happens. But the reason we ask for closing costs is because it's dollar for dollar out of your pocket. So let's just say you're buying a $300,000 house and your down payment's 10.5. So you want to get into that house, you only got 12 grand to work with. So let's just say the closing costs are like 6 grand and the escrows are 3 grand. That's $9,000. So in order for you to get in that house, it's more than 10 grand. It's really closer to 20 grand, right?
Over
With
20,
the
yeah,
closing
yeah.
cost. Now, why would you, instead of reducing the house by 9,000, why would you rather have them pay 9,000 in closing costs? Because by reducing a house by $9,000 from 300 to 291 is only going to reduce your out-of-pocket expenses by 3.5% of $9,000.
Well, yeah, yeah. So
Not
you
giving
mean your
you
monthly cash flow. Your monthly cash flow on that is gonna be about between 50 and $65.
at best. But if you getting the closing cost paid saves you $9,000, but if you reduce the
Out of pocket
price by
today.
the same amount, you only save $350.
Yeah,
That's all you saved.
yep.
So it makes sense to get closing costs. And sellers that don't get that, I think, are either stubborn or don't have the right guidance from the listing agent.
For
And
sure.
that listing agent should have, instead of not negotiating, at least negotiated something with them. And I think that's a mistake. I
Well,
think
I don't know this guy. He seemed professional, and I will say that I've met a lot of stubborn sellers that just, are adamant about certain things. So I don't necessarily fault him. He said he tried. He said everything that I said to him, he said, yeah, I told him that. So it seemed to be genuine. And we agreed to check back in at the end of the week. I'm like, hey, well, I'm going to check back with you at the end of the week and see what's up, because your seller is going to want to sell this property. And if they're not getting bites, I want, before you lower the price, give me a call.
that's right.
Right?
That's right. Yep.
Don't
Yep.
lower the price. Give me a call. We'll figure it out.
Yep. So here's another thing I want to talk about, and that's I'm going to talk about tonight at this class. Go to webringyouhome.com. I'm going to send you a link, or you can call or text me at 407-706-3313. The reason this isn't, I don't have a big promotion on this because I just set this up Friday. It was going to be private, but you're invited to come in and join. You can ask questions. But the other thing I want to talk about tonight is jobs and income, because a lot of folks just don't understand what it takes. So I've got one of these clients. He's got a good job, but it's variable income, and he hasn't had a 2-year history. So we're going to talk about what type of jobs are important, how you're paid. Is it hourly? Is it salary? Are you working full time? What does part-time work do? How does that affect you? Can you qualify with part-time income? We're going to talk about co-signers. If we need a co-signer like mom and dad to sign, what are the availabilities for that? All kinds of things we're going to really dive into to help young people understand that affordability is not completely out of reach for you. And the sooner you get into the real estate game, the sooner you're going to be ahead of your peers. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you look around the room today and you are in your 20s and you look at the friends that you have that own real estate, which probably not very many, the ones that do are doing better. they're doing better. It's just a lifestyle. You're going to do better. Then, like you said, we can leapfrog into something else later. So go to webringyouhome.com or call or text me at 407-706-3313, and I'll send you the Zoom link. You got to give me your email address, though. Send you the Zoom link. You can join us tonight.
Perfect.
Anything
Hey,
else you want to add to this?
You got another event coming up at the end of the month, right?
Yes, I do. So I've got an event that I'm going to do, and this is going to be on Wednesday, February the 25th from 6 to 7:15. Now, this is for high income, high net worth people. The opposite of my first time home buyers. You're making a ton of money. You got a CPA. You know your CPA is conservative. You know he's leaving things on the table. Guess what? He is. And mine, I've used my own CPA, the same one for 30 years. And you know what? I don't plan on switching. But when I met this gentleman that helped me understand how to save more taxes, and I'm like, I want to learn how to make better investments. He goes, no, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to save you tax dollars. Because if I can save a client $100,000 in taxes, $50,000 in taxes, that's a huge expense. And this guy is an expert. And what he does is he will literally meet with the CPA, meet with your financial advisor, meet with your will and trust attorney, meet with your estate planner, and they sort it all out and they tie everything together. So if you're high net worth, you're trying to learn how to save money, anybody, and you don't have to be self-employed. I mean, it's really designed for self-employed. And I really want to help more realtors on this because I see a lot of realtors that just they pay their taxes late. They're not paying them. They're on payment plans. Listen,
Wait. Whoa. We have to pay taxes?
Yes, you actually have to pay taxes, especially when you're a high net worth earner like you.
Jeez,
And
man,
you know what?
I
I don't mind paying taxes. I'm in the greatest country in the world, but I don't want to pay more than my fair share. And if I can find ways to reduce that tax consequences, I'm going to do it. WeBringYouHome.com or call or text 407-706-3313. So if you want to get on that event is on the calendar. WeBringYouHome.com, February 25th. All self-employed people, high net worth earners, want to learn how to save more tax dollars. You're going to want to go to this event.
I'm definitely signing up for that one.
Yep. All right, my friend. I will stay.
I'm making a lot of money. All right, man.
Yeah. Thanks.
Make it a great one.